So my talk this afternoon is about how to use AI in order to make things more sustainable, more scalable. And so I'm going to use as an example, okay, a research center that has been set up in collaboration with Alibaba, with Nanyang Technological University, with support from the Singapore government, the Singapore National Research Foundation. So the name of the research center is ANGEL. And what is ANGEL's mission? What is ANGEL trying to do? As you can see over here, basically what ANGEL tries to do is to develop and deploy, meaning we want to be able to translate, to commercialize what the research center develops. And we want to deploy these green AI technologies to empower sustainable ecosystems and lifestyles. I will give you a few examples later on. So here are 10 big challenges that the research center tries to address. I'm not going to read each and every one of these challenges because I only have very limited time, but you can take a look at the list and maybe I can just highlight one or two of the challenges. So for example, here the first one is, can we make AI smarter but using fewer resources? And why is it important to use fewer resources? If we use fewer resources, it means that our models can be smaller, can be faster, and can be more energy efficient. And of course, all this is very important. Energy efficiency will translate into basically something that will help our environment because we don't need to use as much electricity. Here's another one, which is like, can we make AI available to almost everyone? So it doesn't mean that you have to have a very fancy smartphone, for example, or a very fancy laptop. Just with an ordinary smartphone, you can access all the tools that may be available through AI. For example, ChatGPT or Alibaba Cloud. And here's another very important one, this one here, data centers. Because many of you may know that AI is made possible by these very large data centers which consume a huge amount of electricity. For example, in Singapore, about 5% of the electricity consumption, total electricity consumption in Singapore is used by the data centers. So you can imagine that that's a huge amount of electricity. So how to make these data centers more energy efficient? How to make sure that we can cool these data centers because they get very, very hot. You have all these very powerful GPUs running and the whole thing dissipates a lot of heat. And so you need to be able to cool down the whole system. Otherwise, the whole system is going to break down. So how to come up with new ways, better ways, more efficient ways of cooling down these data centers. And then over here, you can see that we have some application areas. So these are different areas where this Angel Research Center wants to apply AI. So let me again illustrate this with some examples. Let's say here, how can AI transform healthcare for aging populations? As you know, in many countries, including Singapore and including China, the population is aging very rapidly. And because of progress in modern medicine, of course, people are living longer and longer. And as they get longer, live longer and longer, they need more and more healthcare. So how can society provide these services, these healthcare services to the aging population in a way that is economically sustainable? Because if you cannot afford the healthcare, even though you have very good healthcare, but you cannot afford it, then that's also not good. So we want to come up with ways in which AI can help sustain healthcare for our senior citizens. And one way, for example, is to use AI to sense and monitor the health condition of the elderly, the seniors, in their homes, as an example. So then that will allow seniors to stay in their home so that they don't have to move to a care home, a senior care home, at an early stage. And that will be very good for the senior. It is also going to be very good for society, and it's going to be very good for family members of the seniors. And let me take another example from here. So how can AI, again, allow us to make consumers make more sustainable choices? So what do I mean by that? Again, I take an example. So let's suppose that when it comes to food, of course, we all know that many of us, we like fast food, like McDonald's, for example. But we also know that this kind of food is not very healthy for us, okay? And so basically what we try to do is to use AI to nudge, to encourage consumers to make good choices, healthier choices, so that they will have fewer health problems a few years down the road. And also, basically, it's going to be good for the environment. So here I have, for example, Dr. Chang Inan, who works on this project. So this is a very impactful project because I think it affects not only elderly people, but of course also a lot of young people, to make sure that we sort of nudge them, encourage them, train them to make good food choices. Okay, this is just to show that this Angel Research Center was launched, was opened last year, the 12th of September 2024 in Singapore. And at that time, Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Heng Swee Keat, opened the research center. Okay, this is some of the achievements of our research center. So in the research center itself, it involves 40 NTU and Alibaba principal investigators. And we have achieved 50 top-tier publications. So these are publications either in top journals or top conferences. And we have trained 100 students, many of them PhD students, and we have so far 80 technical disclosures and patents, and we have a total of 100 researchers in the research center. Okay, so here are some more examples of the projects that Angel is involved in. So here's one example where over here we try to use tracing or tracking of goods. These goods could be, for example, food deliveries, how to use AI in order to improve the delivery of foods, for example, by cutting down on the distance that needs to be traveled, or by cutting down on the time to delivery and so on. So this has actually been a very successful project, and some of the achievements you can see are over here. We also collaborate with this URA, is the Urban Redevelopment Authority of Singapore, in order to help design future, not only design future cities, but how to improve the design in existing cities so that, again, it's more sustainable, it's more energy efficient. Okay, this is the one about the data center, which I mentioned earlier, that we want to make the data center greener. So we want to make the data center use less electricity, for example, okay, or have less impact on the environment. And this one here is the project about the green recommendations. So it could be green recommendation for food. It could be green recommendation for the type of appliances that you choose to buy for your home, whether it's the washer, dryer, the refrigerator, and so on. Okay, this one here is a project which helps people who are either suffering or may suffer from neurodegenerative diseases. So as the population ages, we find that there are more and more people who are suffering from diseases such as Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. And so this project, which is to help people with Alzheimer's, either in the early stages or in the later stages, we want to be able to detect the onset of Alzheimer's. And in fact, this project recently won a very prestigious prize in Shanghai. It's this one here, the SAIL Awards in Shanghai at the World AI Conference. Thank you very much for your attention.